We've all heard Cody use this phrase, likely coached by Robin, as a justification for his behavior. Hello and welcome back to Sister Wives Crew, the only channel that digs deeper, connects the dots, and brings you the exclusive theories and insider whispers you won't hear anywhere else. He needed to stay home during COVID to protect the younger kids. He needed to prioritize the family that was loyal and obedient. What we're about to discuss today is a seismic event, a rumor so explosive it could completely shatter the foundations of the Brown family empire. In a courtroom, this defense would be systematically dismantled. Gwendolyn's lawyers would have likely argued that this wasn't a defense. We've all watched the slow-motion implosion of Cody Brown's plural family. It was an admission of guilt. It was proof of the very favoritism Gwendolyn testified about. We've seen the heartbreak, the arguments, and the mass exodus of his first 3 wives. By prioritizing his tender-aged children with Robin, he was, by definition, deprioritizing and neglecting his other children. But what if the biggest battle wasn't fought on a TV screen? What if the most devastating blow to Cody's patriarchy came from a quiet, composed voice in a place he never expected? Robin's desire for a monogamous family unit, wrapped in the guise of plural marriage, allegedly created the very conditions for this lawsuit. A court of law? The report we've been piecing together is staggering. She didn't just witness the neglect. The headline says it all. Our theory posits she actively encouraged and benefited from it. Gwendolyn's testimony has allegedly cost Cody Brown $. Now let's go back to the smoking gun, the hidden Sedona property. They say the truth will set you free for Cody. Remember the theoretical LLC Patriarch holdings? According to this explosive theory, it just cost him a fortune. Robin's name is right there next to Cody's. This isn't just about money. This is about accountability. She isn't just a bystander. This is about a child's voice finally being heard and a father being forced to pay the price for years of alleged neglect. She is an alleged co-conspirator in the financial deception. She would have been fully aware that family funds were being used to purchase an asset that would exclusively benefit her and her children. This is a story of betrayal, hidden assets, and the digital daggers that can't be denied. Can you imagine her being deposed by Gwendolyn's lawyers? If you want to go on this deep dive with us, if you believe in holding power accountable, and if you're as fascinated by this family as we are. Lawyer Mrs. Brown, were you aware that the funds used to purchase the Sedona property came from the family's joint television income? Do me a huge favor right now. Hit that like button. It tells YouTube you need to see more content like this. Robin, I just let Cody handle the finances. And if you haven't already, press that subscribe button and ring the bell. I trust my husband. Lawyer Soyu, a co-member of the LLC that owns this multi-dollar asset, had no idea where the money came from. You are not going to want to miss a single update on this developing story. Alright, let's get into it. The bombshell report deconstructing the dollar judgment. You just signed the documents Cody put in front of you. Robin, he said it was an investment for our future, for the whole family's future. So where does a number like dollar even come from? It sounds unbelievable, right? Lawyer the whole family. That's what we thought, too, until we started digging into the whispers coming from sources close to the family, sources who, for obvious legal reasons, must remain anonymous. But Mrs. Brown, can you show me where on this document the names of Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, or any of their children appear? This wasn't a divorce settlement. Can you explain why this asset? This wasn't a standard child support case. Purchased with family money was structured to exclude % of that family, she would have no good answer. According to our theory, this was a civil lawsuit, a tort claim filed by Gwendolyn Brown as an adult against her father, Cody Brown. Under oath, the carefully crafted narrative of the loyal, victimized wife would crumble. The legal claim? A combination of things. But the core of it, we believe, is intentional infliction of emotional distress. She would be exposed as, at best, willfully ignorant, and at worst, a key player in a scheme to financially disenfranchise the other children. Or IIED. Now, For those who aren't familiar, IAED is an extremely high bar to clear in court. Our sources allege that this judgment has caused a massive rift between Cody and Robin. You can't just sue someone because they hurt your feelings. Cody, a man who never takes accountability, is likely blaming everyone but himself. The conduct has to be extreme and outrageous. It has to be behavior that is considered atrocious and utterly intolerable in a civilized community. He might even be blaming Robin for pushing him to alienate the other kids, for creating the isolated environment that bred this resentment. And for years we have watched Cody Brown's behavior on our screens. And Robin, seeing her financial security threatened, might be looking at Cody for the first time, not as a patriarch, but as a liability. But what if the behavior off-screen was times worse? What if Gwendolyn had the receipts to prove it? The very fortress she built around her family has now become their prison. According to the report, the dollar judgment can be broken down into 3 theoretical parts. And Gwendolyn's lawsuit was the battering ram that broke down the door. First, compensatory damages for emotional distress. The coming storm, the children's crusade. This portion of the award would be for the actual harm Gwendolyn suffered. Gwendolyn's reported victory wasn't just a personal win. We're talking years of therapy bills, past, present, and future. It was a proof of concept. It sent a message to every other Brown child who has ever felt slighted, ignored, or abandoned. We're talking about the documented psychological impact of growing up feeling neglected, overlooked, and emotionally abandoned by her own father. Your pain has a voice, and that voice has a price tag. The alleged gag order might silence Gwendolyn, but it can't erase the precedent. Gwendolyn has been incredibly open on her own platforms about her struggles, her neurodivergence, and the complexities of her upbringing. The whispers we're hearing suggest that a children's crusade is no longer a theoretical possibility. Imagine her in court, calmly and methodically detailing the systemic favoritism she witnessed, testifying about the stark difference in treatment between the children of the first 3 wives. It's actively being discussed. Lawyers are being consulted. Evidence is being gathered. Let's break down the potential plaintiffs and the unique angles their cases could take. And the children of the TH. Imagine her describing the feeling of being a financial burden, a nuisance, an afterthought. Potential plaintiff 1, Pedden Brown, the public avenger. Pedden has never been shy about his feelings for his father. A source allegedly described her testimony as a quiet storm, delivered without histrionics, but with a raw, undeniable power that left the courtroom stunned. He's been outspoken, confrontational, and at times, a loose cannon. His lawsuit, if it were to happen, would likely be the most aggressive. She wasn't just telling stories, she was presenting a case study in parental malfeasance. He wouldn't just be seeking financial compensation, he'd be seeking a public reckoning. She was giving a voice to the silent pain that we, the viewers, have only seen glimpses of. His case might focus on the psychological damage of being raised in a high-control, patriarchal system that then discarded him. Second, punitive damages. This is the kicker. He could testify about the pressure to conform, the lack of a consistent father figure, and the emotional fallout of being Christine's only son in a family that he feels devalued both of them. This is where the judge, if this report is true, decided not just to compensate Gwendolyn, but to punish Cody. Punitive damages are designed to send a message. Pedden's evidence would likely be more than just texts. They are meant to deter the defendant and others like them from ever repeating such behavior. It could be voicemails, emails, and his own public statements, which he would argue were cries for help that were consistently ignored by his father. For a judge to award punitive damages, they would have to believe that Cody's actions weren't just negligent, but willful and malicious, that he knew the harm he was causing and either didn't care or, in some cases, reveled in his power to dismiss his own children's needs. He represents pure, unfiltered rage and a demand for justice. Potential plaintiff to Michelty Pedren, the financial analyst. Michelty's approach would be different. This is where the evidence becomes absolutely critical. She has always seemed more pragmatic, more focused on the business side of the family. And believe me, we are going to get to the digital dagger that allegedly sealed Cody's fate. Her lawsuit, we theorize, would be less about emotional distress and more about financial impropriety. The judge would essentially be saying, Mr. Brown, your conduct was so egregious, so far beyond the pale of acceptable fatherhood, that you must be financially punished for it. Think about it. McKelty and Tony were deeply involved in LuLaRoe, a business that generated significant income. This part of the award isn't about Gwendolyn's pain, it's about Cody's character. Where did that money go? Was it properly accounted for in the family pot, or was it absorbed into the Cody and Robin financial black hole? It's a legal condemnation of his entire patriarchal philosophy when put into practice. And RD, the hidden Sedona property. McKelty could file a suit demanding a full forensic accounting of the family's finances during her adult years. Now, this is the part of the theory that connects everything. This is the linchpin, because a lawsuit for emotional distress is one thing. She could claim that her labor and income were misappropriated for the benefit of another part of the family. But when you add a layer of financial deception, that changes the entire game. Her case would be the one that could legally force Cody and Robin to open their books, revealing every hidden LLC, every secret bank account, every questionable expenditure. The report alleges that during Gwendolyn's testimony, a bombshell was dropped, the existence of a hidden, undeveloped property in Sedona, Arizona, a property that Cody allegedly purchased using commingled family funds years ago, but which was secretly titled in a way that would shield it from his other wives and children, perhaps in an LLC with only his and Robin's names. For Cody, a man obsessed with control, a court-ordered forensic audit would be his worst nightmare. Potential plaintiffs, Garrison and Gabriel Brown, the COVID exiles. This case would be perhaps the most powerful because we all watched it happen. Perhaps in a trust exclusively for Robin's children. The story of Garrison and Gabe's estrangement from Cody during the pandemic is not speculation. Why is this so important? Because it demonstrates a pattern of deceit. It's documented fact from the show itself. It suggests that Cody wasn't just emotionally abandoning his other children. He was allegedly financially abandoning them, too. He was actively working to secure a future for his favored family while leaving the others to fend for themselves. In this scenario, a portion of the dollar award would be what's called equitable restitution. The judge would be saying this asset was purchased with family money, and therefore a portion of its value rightfully belongs to the children of that family. By awarding a piece of this asset's value to Gwendolyn, the court would be righting a financial wrong. It would be a legal clawback of funds Cody allegedly tried to secret away. This element transforms the case from a purely emotional into one of concrete, calculated financial betrayal, the power of proof, the digital dagger. So how could Gwendolyn possibly prove such a devastating pattern of emotional neglect in a court of law? It's her word against his, right? Wrong. This is where our theory gets terrifyingly real for Cody. The key piece of evidence, the smoking gun, was allegedly a meticulously curated dossier of text messages and emails. In the digital age, your casual dismissals, your cold replies, your ignored pleas for connection, they don't just disappear. They become Exhibit A. We've been told that Gwendolyn's legal team presented a timeline of communication that was nothing short of damning. Let's speculate on what these texts might have looked like, based on the dynamics we've all witnessed on the show for over a decade. Brutal, cold, a complete deflection of parental responsibility, shifting the burden entirely onto Christine. It's not just the no, it's the condescending tone, the implication that she is an annoyance. Now imagine a dozen of these. A pattern. Exhibit B. The invalidation of feelings. Gwendolyn Dad, watching the episode last night was really hard. I felt really left out during the holidays and seeing it on TV brought it all back. I feel like you don't see me sometimes. The response? Not empathy, not a phone call. Cody. That's a ridiculous interpretation. You are being overly sensitive. The cameras create drama. You need to rise above it and not be a victim. I don't have time for this kind of negativity. This is classic gaslighting. He's not just ignoring her pain, he's invalidating it. He's telling her that her own feelings are wrong, that she is the problem for having them. This text, if real, would be a psychological fingerprint of the neglect she's described. It's not just about what he did, it's about what he failed to do as a father. This is perhaps the most powerful evidence of all. The texts that were never answered. Gwendolyn. Hey, Dad, I'm in town this weekend. Would love to see you and the family if you have a spare hour. I miss you, Gwendolyn, a few days later. Just checking in. Hope you're doing okay in court. One unanswered text is just a busy day, but a documented pattern of unanswered texts over months, over years, that isn't a busy schedule. That is a deliberate choice. That is abandonment in digital form. Her legal team could argue that each ignored message was a small act of cruelty, an affirmation of her worthlessness in her father's eyes. The cumulative effect? Devastating. According to our sources, this is what Gwendolyn's team presented. Not a handful of angry texts, but a cold, hard log of systemic indifference. They connected these private communications to Cody's public statements. They would show a clip from the show where Cody preaches about family and loyalty and then immediately follow it with a screenshot of him telling his daughter he doesn't have time for her negativity. The contrast would be jarring, the hypocrisy undeniable. Cody's own words, his own thumbs, built the cage that trapped him. He wasn't just on trial for being a bad father. He was on trial for being a hypocrite of the highest order, and a young woman had the digital receipts to prove it. Courtroom confrontation. The day Cody faced his truth. Let's paint a picture of what that courtroom must have felt like. This isn't a TLC soundstage. There are no confessionals to retreat to. There's no producer to mediate. It's just Cody Brown under oath, facing the consequences of his actions in the sterile, unforgiving light of a courtroom. On one side, you have Cody, likely flanked by expensive lawyers, stewing. We can imagine him trying to project that same blustering alpha male confidence we see on the show. But under fluorescent lights, facing a judge, that bravado can quickly curdle into petulance. On the other side, Gwendolyn, not a child anymore. An intelligent, articulate adult woman. Our sources described her as incredibly composed. She wasn't there to cry or scream. She was there to present facts. She was there to reclaim her own narrative, a narrative that for years had been controlled, edited, and manipulated for television. The confrontation would have been electric. Imagine the cross-examination of Cody Brown, Gwendolyn's lawyer. Mr. Brown, on September 10th of last year, your daughter Gwendolyn texted you. I miss you. You read this message at p.m. Can you please tell the court what your response was? Cody, I'm a very busy man. I have a lot of children, a lot of responsibilities. I can't be expected to respond to every single text message I get. It's just not possible. Gwendolyn's lawyer. I see. So you were too busy for the daughter you hadn't seen in 6 months. Let's talk about what you were doing that afternoon. Weren't you, in fact, live tweeting during an episode of the show? And didn't you, over the course of 2 hours, send over tweets to complete strangers? Boom. The trap is sprung. His excuse of being too busy evaporates under the harsh light of public data. His priorities are laid bare for the judge to see. He had time for his online persona, for his fans, for his brand. He did not have time for his daughter. Now let's take it a step further. Let's talk about the Sedona property, Gwendolyn's lawyer. Mr. Brown, let's turn our attention to an LLC you formed and called Patriarch Holdings. Can you tell the court who the members of that LLC are? Cody. That would be myself and my wife, Robin. Gwendolyn's lawyer. And what assets does Patriarch Holdings LLC own? Cody. It holds some business assets, investments. Gwendolyn's lawyer. Does it in fact hold the deed to a 7-acre parcel of land in Sedona, Arizona, purchased in for cash? The silence in the courtroom would have been deafening. This is the moment the emotional case and the financial case merge into one explosive charge, because that property, purchased while he was still legally and spiritually married to 3 other women, with funds that were almost certainly derived from the family's collective television income, was now exclusively under the control of him and his favored wife. It's the ultimate proof of the favoritism Gwendolyn would have testified about. It's not just about who gets more time or affection, it's about who gets a secure future. Who gets a piece of the empire. And Cody, through his own financial arrangements, allegedly made his choice crystal clear. This confrontation wasn't just about Gwendolyn. It was about Christine, Janelle, and Mary. It was about all 18 of the Brown children. It was the public unraveling of the Cody Brown myth, not by an ex-wife, but by his own child, who simply came to court and told the truth, armed with her father's own words. A deeper dive. The Sedona secret and a conspiracy of neglect. Let's dig deeper into this hidden Sedona property theory, because it's the element that gives this entire narrative its teeth. Without it, it's a tragic family drama. With it, it becomes a story of calculated deception and financial conspiracy. Why Sedona? The location is perfect. It's a place known for its spiritual energy, a place Cody might justify as a future retreat for the family. All while legally structuring it for his own benefit. It's close enough to Flagstaff to be manageable, but far enough to be kept under wraps. How would a property like this be hidden? It's easier than you think. By creating a limited liability company, an LLC with a generic name like Patriarch Holdings or Desert Sky Investments, Cody and Robin could purchase property without their names appearing directly on the public deed. It's a common tactic for privacy, but it can also be used to obscure assets. The key question is, where did the money come from? For years, the Brown family's primary source of income has been the television show. That income, legally, is a product of the entire family's participation. Christine, Janelle, Mary, and all their children are the reason that show exists and generates revenue. Therefore, an argument can be made that the money is, in essence, a commingled family asset. If Cody took a substantial sum of that commingled money and used it to buy an asset that only he and Robin control, that is a profound financial betrayal of the rest of the family. So how would Gwendolyn even find out about this? This is where the theory gets even more interesting. It likely wouldn't be a dramatic discovery. It would be a slip of the tongue. Perhaps one of Robin's children mentioned it offhandedly, not realizing it was a secret. Oh yeah, Dad's Sedona land. We're going to build a cabin there someday. Perhaps Gwendolyn saw an email or a piece of mail by accident during a visit. Or, and this is a fascinating possibility, perhaps one of the former wives, during their own financial discovery process for their divorces, uncovered the LLC and shared the information. Imagine Christine's lawyers finding this hidden asset while preparing her divorce case. They might not be able to claim it for Christine directly, depending on when it was purchased and with what funds, but that knowledge is powerful. And sharing that information with her adult child, a child who is building her own legal case against her father, it's the ultimate checkmate. This conspiracy of neglect is the overarching theme. The Sedona property becomes the physical symbol of it all. It's the tangible proof that the emotional neglect Gwendolyn and her siblings felt was mirrored by a financial strategy designed to exclude them. Think about it from Cody's perspective. As his first 3 marriages were crumbling, he must have seen the writing on the wall. The family pot was about to be split. What better way to protect his real family, his future with Robin and their children, than to start siphoning assets into a separate, protected entity? It's a cynical and ruthless strategy, but it's one that makes a terrifying amount of sense in the context of his behavior over the last several seasons. The alleged testimony about this property would have recontextualized everything for the judge. Cody's dismissive texts were no longer just the actions of a neglectful, busy father. They were the actions of a man who was actively, consciously, and financially disentangling himself from the children he no longer saw as part of his core family unit. He wasn't just ignoring Gwendolyn. He was, in a sense, disinheriting her emotionally and financially, long before any legal papers were filed. And that level of calculated coldness is exactly the kind of outrageous conduct that leads to massive, punitive judgments, the recent update and the ripple effect. Now you might be asking, if a judgment this massive was handed down, why haven't we seen it on the news? Why isn't every media outlet covering it? This brings us to the most recent update we've heard, and it's a detail that makes this whole theory feel chillingly authentic. The whisper is that immediately following the verdict, Cody's legal team filed for and was granted a strict gag order on all parties. A gag order would legally prohibit Gwynlyn, Cody, and anyone else directly involved in the case from speaking about it publicly at all. They can't post about it. They can't give interviews. They can't even confirm or deny the existence of the lawsuit. This would be a move made by Cody's team to stop the bleeding. They know that the facts of this case are reputation poison. The last thing they need is Gwynlyn going on a victory tour, sharing the details of her testimony and the evidence presented. This gag order theory explains the silence. It explains why this story exists only in whispers and reports. It's a legally enforced blackout. But the silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. Behind the scenes, the shockwaves are reportedly tearing the family apart. Our sources indicate two major developments are currently in play. First, the appeal. Cody is not the kind of man to accept a defeat like this. He's allegedly marshalling his resources to file an appeal. He will fight this judgment with everything he has, not just because of the money, but because of what it represents. This verdict is a legal repudiation of his entire life's work. It's a judge saying his patriarchy is a sham. His ego simply cannot withstand that. The appeal process will be long, expensive, and will likely drag even more of the family's secrets out into the light during the discovery process. Second, the children's crusade. Gwynlyn's alleged victory has not gone unnoticed by her siblings. This is the part that should terrify Cody and Robin the most. Gwynlyn has created a blueprint. She's proven that it can be done. She has weaponized her voice, backed it up with digital proof, and won. What's to stop P. Dawn from filing a similar suit? Or Mike Kelty or any of the other adult children from Janelle and Mary's side of the family who feel they have a similar story of neglect and financial disparity to tell? We are on the verge of a potential legal avalanche. Gwynlyn may have been the first, but she is unlikely to be the last. This dollar might just be the down payment on Cody's total reckoning. He didn't just lose a lawsuit. He may have started a war against his own children, a war he is hopelessly outnumbered in. And that is where we're going to leave part 1, a father judged and found wanting a daughter vindicated but silenced by the law, and an empire built on the shifting sands of public perception, now facing a tidal wave of accountability from the very children it was supposed to protect. Welcome back to Sister Wives Crew. If you're just joining us, make sure you watch part 1. In it, we laid out the explosive report that Gwynlyn Brown took her father, Cody, to court. And won a staggering judgment for emotional distress and financial deception, all backed by a dossier of his own text messages. We ended with the bombshell update. A strict gag order has allegedly been placed on all parties, silencing the story but not the shockwaves. Cody is preparing to appeal, and Gwynlyn's siblings, now armed with a legal blueprint, are watching. The Brown family is on the brink of a civil war. Now we dive into the fallout. Because a judgment of this magnitude doesn't just affect a father and a daughter. It's a rock thrown into the already murky pond of the Brown family, and the ripples are turning into a tsunami. Let's start with the person at the absolute center of the storm, whether she admits it or not. The Queen's Gambit, Robin's role in the downfall. For years, a huge portion of the Sister Wives viewership has pointed the finger at Robin, labeling her the architect of the family's demise. But what if her role wasn't just emotional manipulation? What if, according to our theory, her actions were central to the legal and financial catastrophe that has now befallen Cody? Let's be clear, Robin was not the defendant in this lawsuit. But you can be sure her influence, her actions, and her financial entanglement with Cody were dissected under a microscope in that courtroom. First, let's consider her immediate reaction to a nearly $1 million judgment against her husband. We can speculate that it's a mixture of pure panic and indignant fury. Imagine the tense silence in that mansion in Flagstaff. This isn't just an emotional loss for Cody. It's a direct threat to the lavish lifestyle and secure future she has carefully constructed. That dollar has to come from somewhere. Does it come from the sale of assets? Does it come from their savings? Does it come from the Coyote Pass land that is supposed to be her children's inheritance? Every dollar paid to Gwendolyn is a dollar taken away from Robin and her tender-aged children. And this brings us to the tender-aged children defense. We've all heard Cody use this phrase, likely coached by Robin, as a justification for his behavior. He needed to stay home during COVID to protect the younger kids. He needed to prioritize the family that was loyal and obedient. In a courtroom, this defense would be systematically dismantled. Gwendolyn's lawyers would have likely argued that this wasn't a defense. It was an admission of guilt. It was proof of the very favoritism Gwendolyn testified about. By prioritizing his tender-aged children with Robin, he was, by definition, deprioritizing and neglecting his other children. Robin's desire for a monogamous family unit, wrapped in the guise of plural marriage, allegedly created the very conditions for this lawsuit. She didn't just witness the neglect. Our theory posits she actively encouraged and benefited from it. Now let's go back to the smoking gun, the hidden Sedona property. Remember the theoretical LLC Patriarch holdings? Robin's name is right there next to Cody's. She isn't just a bystander. She's an alleged co-conspirator in the financial deception. She would have been fully aware that family funds were being used to purchase an asset that would exclusively benefit her and her children. Can you imagine her being deposed by Gwendolyn's lawyers? Lawyer Mrs. Brown, were you aware that the funds used to purchase the Sedona property came from the family's joint television income? Robin, I just let Cody handle the finances. I trust my husband. Lawyer, so you, a co-member of the LLC that owns this multi-dollar asset, had no idea where the money came from. You just signed the documents Cody put in front of you. Robin. He said it was an investment for our future, for the whole family's future. Lawyer, the whole family.